Hi, my name is Melissa Stelmack and I will be presenting on small group instruction, types of groups. In this presentation, I will be focused on the two different types of groups within small group instruction, heterogeneous and homogeneous. Heterogeneous groups. What is heterogeneous groups? This type of group entails students of varying levels, varying abilities, and other factors being grouped together. Sometimes you might hear this referred to as mixing or a mixed group. What are the benefits of heterogeneous grouping? There are many benefits to heterogeneous grouping or grouping students by a variety of variables. There is no obvious high or low groups. Students can coach one another. Students can learn from each other. It allows students to have change. It allows students to have choice. And it can strengthen student relationships and have new ones begin. Some disadvantages of heterogeneous grouping. It can be a little more difficult for teachers to manage. It requires more direct teaching of how to talk collaboratively so that your students know what that looks like. Sometimes higher achieving students may not feel challenged. Sometimes teachers use this as a classroom management tool, which is not the purpose of small group instruction. And sometimes students can become self-confident. Self-confidence can be lower. Homogeneous groups. What is homogeneous grouping? Homogeneous grouping is a type of group that involves grouping students that have similar levels or abilities together. You might sometimes hear this referred to as leveling students. Some benefits of homogeneous grouping include students performing tasks at their own pace, instruction being easily tailored to match the students in the group's needs, students having similar questions, students feeling very comfortable and confident. Homogeneous grouping can maximize on student achievement, and it allows opportunities for students to learn from one another. Again, because the environment is at a more comfortable pace, where they're feeling like they can explain things to their peers and things like that. In the next slide, I'm actually going to show you a clip of a piece of one of the lessons that I did earlier in this week. And the first girl that shows and explains her thinking, she's very outgoing. She's not afraid to kind of get up and speak her mind. The second student, though, on the other hand, is quite the opposite in whole group. So in his classroom of fifth grade peers, he stays pretty quiet. So in small group, it's really nice to see him because I do see him in the whole group and in small group. Let's take a look.
But the 7 is in the thousands place, so I moved it up one, and I put the 7 in the 10,000s place. So the only one that had it in the 10,000s place was 72,501.
Very good. I love how she used those fancy words when she said it's in the thousands place. So I moved it to the left, now it's in the 10,000 place. Thanks, Riley. All right, I need somebody to come up and show B. This is bringing us back. This is quite a review to order of operation.
So again, that student in particular is explaining her thinking, not uncommon for her, but it's great for the other students. She's using some of those math vocabulary words when she's explaining. She's linking it back to vocabulary and math, where some of the other students would simply say, you know, the 7 had to go over here, and so I picked that one. She's actually saying the 7 was in the thousands place. I wanted it to be 10 times greater, so I had to move it to the 10,000s place, which is great for the other students to hear that, not from me, from their peers. And here's my second student I was talking about, who is very reserved in the classroom, not as confident for sure in the whole group. And watch him shine.
Now, can you do it for us?
So first you have to start with parentheses.
Awesome.
You always have to start with parentheses. 2 times 3 is 6. You bring down all the other numbers.
I like how he's saying organized. He's bringing everything down after each step.
So now there's a plus and a minus, and we have to go for whatever's first. So we go 5 plus 6, so that's 11. And then we bring down the rest of the numbers. It's 7.
Can you put your equal sign there? Awesome. Thanks, Malik. What he was explaining to you, thanks, Malik, you can have a seat. What he was explaining to you, remember how we would, after every single expression, when we had first started, we would...
And so again, there he is explaining his thought process of every step of the way, trying to figure out, how to solve that expression using order of operations. Awesome. Disadvantages of homogeneous grouping. It can result in lower expectations for particular groups if it's not done effectively. Your expectations really shouldn't be changing too much. You don't want to hold the students back. You want the instruction to be aimed towards those students, not hold them back. It can increase divisions in the classroom, especially when students start to recognize, that's a high group, that's a little group. They do catch on if you're not switching those groups and being careful with, who's getting who's with who, switching up. Are you using homogeneous grouping and heterogeneous grouping? You've got to kind of have a balance there. High achieving students can sometimes feel too much pressure, and they lose a little bit of time to elaborate. So sometimes if you're putting a group of all high achievers together, the pressure is there because they oftentimes put too much pressure on themselves, and so when they have a group of students who are like-minded like them and have similar strengths, it can be a lot. And because those students a lot of times are better at explaining their thoughts, or I should say are more likely to explain their whole thought processes and have a lot of ideas that they want to get out, it leaves little time for them to get them out because they're majority of the time all trying to do that. You could have a group that's non-participatory or overbearing, right? If you have a group that's really kind of self-conscious, they might not participate, especially at the beginning when you first form that group. On the opposite end, you might have a group where they're very similar and they all want to take the lead. Again, that can decrease the self-confidence in students. All right, let's play a little game here. Which is it? We're going to decide, is it homogeneous or heterogeneous? Students were given an assessment to check their letter sounds for consonant and short vowels. The results of the assessments were then used to form 3 groups. One group knew 0 to 1 short vowel sounds, one group knew 2 to 4 short vowel sounds, and one group knew all 5 short vowel sounds. So they're being split up into 3 groups based on the data results. This is homogeneous. They are going together with people who have scored similar to them. Instruction can be guided based on those letter sounds. Students were told to choose a partner. They then were paired up with another partnership to form a small group. Heterogeneous, right? They're mixed abilities. They randomly picked a partner. They were randomly put with another pair of another set of partners. For literacy projects, students were put in 2 groups of 5. One student was a high achiever, one struggled with fluency but had strong reading comprehension skills, One was an average reader in all areas, one excelled in listening comprehension, and one student was a newcomer who spoke very little English. I think that should be obvious. It's a mix. There's a whole mix of strengths and areas of needed improvement. That's heterogeneous. On an informal assessment related to addition, 6 students were found to be struggling with regrouping. These 6 students were placed into a small group with the intent to focus on regrouping with addition. And that would be homogeneous. Those 6 students had a specific skill that a teacher could work on within a small group. In a co-taught classroom, the math interventionist took students with even numbers, and the classroom teacher took students with odd numbers. So again, not real small group, but smaller group than the whole group. The 2 teachers used parallel teaching, which is basically one teacher is teaching here, one teacher is teaching here. They're parallel of each other. They're teaching the same content at the same time, just in separate groups. Again, because they're mixed, right? I didn't really form a group based on their skills or needs. That would be heterogeneous. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks.